I'd like to welcome Albany County Comptroller Michael Connors to the chambers tonight to present his final fiscal condition report of Albany County for the year 2018. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your service to the people of Albany County, all your great work. Hope you enjoy the rest of your days here at 112 and enjoy your retirement. Thank you for your service.
You know, the county clerk, I wanted to check to see what the record was, and the county clerk's office has every elected official from 1686. And I have been blessed and overwhelmed to be lucky enough to be here for the longest tenure, and it's been a tremendous honor. I sat right next to where Wanda is now for 4 years as a county legislator, and I have to tell you, it's been a tremendous experience. The employees of Albany County are dedicated. They're great people. They work very hard. I will say that it's a bittersweet time. This is the 24th State of the Fisc. It's something that we started that gives you a look back at the previous year based upon generally accepted accounting principles. The county submitted on the 28th or 29th of April our report to the New York State Comptroller's Office. It's an annual update document or annual financial report. And we're pleased that that is also a gap document as well. I have to tell you that when you look at the tenor of the report, there's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of things happened in 24 years. And the hard work done in this room by yourselves and your predecessors, along with the county executive, all the other elected officials in our office, have brought us to a strong condition. So we are in strong condition for now. And as you know, I'm always worried about what the next bad thing is that's going to happen, and I'm very concerned about sales tax because of the amount of money that we're going to lose as more and more of that purchase power goes over on the internet, and those people who are coming into Albany County to shop here, we're going to lose that revenue. If we can go ahead, just to give you a little grasp of where we were. Our overall fund balance in '96 was $19.5 million. This year, it's a little over $67 million. In '96, our undesignated fund balance, the surplus, that's what people think of the surplus, that's money that the legislature can appropriate and use as they see fit, was $14.8 million in '96, 12/31. And this past year, it was a little over $49.3 million. So you are to be congratulated on that. Now that looks great on the surface of it, but in comparison to a lot of our peer counties, we're not saving as much as we need to. The budget now is going up significantly. I just had a chance a little while ago to look at the '96 State of the Fisc. And our weekly shares for Medicaid were under $600,000. And now, you're looking at about $1.5 million to $1.7 million a week. Despite the overall increase in our surpluses and the balances, our budget has gone up as well. The combined budget was $350 million in '96, and it's $712 million this year. These are the results, the highlight of the results for 2018. The bottom line that everybody looks at, do we have a good year, do we have a bad year, do we make money, lose money? That's basically the calculation of using your excess of revenues, your appropriations of prior year's fund balances, which you didn't have any, and any other sources over expenditures and encumbrances and other uses. So you take the money you took in versus the money you spent. Now, in plain terms, when we talk about generally accepted accounting principles, we're talking about a modified accrual budget, which under government standards we use. That means that we tell you what you earned during 2018 and what you were obligated to spend, or those obligations that you had during that 12 months. The undesignated fund balance went up by a little over $3 million this past year, and you can see that that's $49.3 million. That percentage of your undesignated fund balances to the overall revenue is roughly 10.7%. And while that seems like a great amount, there are an awful lot of counties our size that are at 15. Our local peers are up at 15 and 16%. If you look at our net appropriations, the fund balance is approximately 9.96%. Next page, please. When you look at the overall revenues, we had a good year revenue-wise. We're up almost $20 million from the previous year. You can see that we're at 571 versus 551 from the previous year, from 2017. Your expenditures are up also, but not as great as your revenues were. So your expenditures grew by over 16.2 million, and you went up from 49.6 to 65.8 million dollars. And some of those expenditures are driven actually by the sales tax increase. Believe it or not, the more sales tax you collect, the 40% you pay out to the local governments will be an expenditure. The excess, in this case, which is good of revenue over expenditures for the year, was $5.3 million. So if you look at operations, you had a positive operations on an accounting basis. The prior period adjustments that are made would reflect that, and that's what the 538 is at the bottom. Sales tax was extremely robust, and I jokingly say that after I said the sky is falling, that we had that great fourth quarter last year. It was a tremendous Christmas season shopping, and really helped tremendously. But the one thing I will say to you, if you look at that sales tax revenue, if that's the gross, we get 60% of that. So you're looking roughly $168 million. We collect more money from sales tax revenue than the total support we get from the federal government and the state government. So that's why this down the road is going to be a real problem for you and your successors, because the potential revenues that we collect right now for people that shop in Albany County, because we're a retail destination, we are going to lose some of that because people are making more and more purchases online. I think the legislature and the executive and our office worked together the last 2 years, and we've had some real success on pushing buying local and buying retail. You can see the county share went up roughly $9 million based upon that. Property tax is $89.2 million, which again is one of the fourth, fifth, or sixth lowest in the state, depending on the figures you're looking at. And while that's great and the taxes are low, when you go door to door, nobody tells you taxes are low. That's because the combined tax bill is swamping people. But if you had the same property tax levy per thousand as Rensselaer County had, that number would be almost 50% higher. The tobacco settlement revenues dollars are down significantly. They're up from year over year, but we're $3.8 million. We were originally slated to get $7.8 million this year on those tobacco revenues. Now, the good news is sales of tobacco have gone down, but the bad news is that the amount of tobacco sales that are covered under the settlement agreement, the master settlement agreement, have grown dramatically. When this started 20 years ago, or a little over 20 years ago, there was 99% of all cigarettes that were sold were under this master settlement agreement. Today, it's about 88% of those cigarettes sold are under that agreement. So there's been a lot of gray market sales of cigars, cigarettes, other things that aren't covered on that, we missed an opportunity, and we should look at that. You should look at that in the future as to whether you want to securitize that or not. The jail facility services went up tremendously this year. As you all know, the sheriff and his department did a great job taking care of a large influx of attendees from ICE, and that is dropped down some now, so I don't know if that's going to continue, but that was a big increase this past year. On the gambling revenue side, the casino revenue is up about $367,000. That's our local casino revenue share based upon being in the catchment area for the Rivers Casino in Schenectady. It's based on the same percentage splits that we have with OTB revenues. The OTB revenues are down slightly. That $323,000 is compared to several years ago. OTB was over $700,000 or $800,000 a year. And as you've all known, you've had a tremendous migration of gambling dollars off of horse racing and into other opportunities, whether it's football betting or a host of other things, online, casino poker or online poker. Those things have really had a big hit. Civic Center had a good year again. They did about 172,000 more than last year. The occupancy tax is up, while it's down roughly 22,000. The occupancy tax, when we came in, there was no audits being performed on hotels and motels, and that number jumped from under $1 million to over $2.5 million that first year. When you see people talk about lower occupancy rates on hotels or motels, that's true. That's because you probably have 5,000 more beds available today than you had several years ago. The tax items, total tax items, if you look at that, your sales tax, property taxes, and other taxes that we collect, we're over $386 million. The way I look at this is that every dollar of taxes that are collected in our budget comes from your constituents' pockets. They have the local taxes out of the left front pocket. They'll have county taxes right front, state and federal in the back. So 100% of the dollars you're getting from the federal and state is merely the return of tax dollars paid by your constituents. So when you add all those together, it's over $500 million of taxes. If you look at this most recent year with state aid, we were down a little over $5.4 million. And that has the potential to be a real problem and a continuing trend for the state. Federal aid was up this year, a little over $346,000. Next slide, please. Personal services, payroll, is up a little over 3.5%. So we're up by $4.8 million, round figure. We're up to $130 million in payroll. And we've talked before about the long-term remedies on that. We need to start sharing people. We need to look at some things that we haven't done in the past. And we've got to do more of this early retirement, return to work part-time, working among ourselves. The other thing I would ask you to look at as you go through the budget process is that if you make health insurance portable for local government employees in Albany County, and you can do this through the Health Insurance Consortium, and we've talked about this for a number of years. If you did that, the accounting for this is relatively straightforward and simple. The county can do this very easily. If Mike Connors worked 10 years for the city, 10 years for the county, and 10 years for the village, and Mike retires, each one of them would pay 1/3 of what Mike's retirement is. Right now, there are people that won't go to work in county government or city government because they can't afford to switch because they're locked in on the health insurance. The other thing that long-term is that if you do get control of your health insurance costs, it's going to be something that will help in the future on rate increases that we're looking at in the future. Medicaid, as I mentioned earlier, is a little under $67 million. It's roughly, if you look at your property tax levy, it's roughly 74 point some odd, let's say 74.1%. 74% of your property tax is consumed on one project that you have no control over. You don't control who gets in, you don't control what the limits are, and you don't control eligibilities. All you do is administer it and pay for it. That's a real issue for us as we go down the road. Family assistance is down at roughly $365,000. Safety net this year, for a lot of reasons, is down $3 million, partially because people expiring on the 5-year limit, but also there has been a slight decline in economic opportunity costs. Next slide. The jail, as you can see, is at $35.8 million last year. It's $1.5 million over the year before. Retirement costs are down slightly by $80,000, but your retirement costs are $22 million. 24 years ago, our retirement costs were under $1 million. Under $1 million. Now, one good piece of news that's bad for some of the employees, but the Tier 5, 6 is starting to become more and more a percentage of your population, so that in another 8 to 12 years, we should have better actuarial control of what's going on. But you've all read about the impact that overtime has on retirement, and that's something that is a real issue for all of us. Health insurance is a little over $47.8 million this year. It's down $4.5 million, and that could just be a timing issue because of the weekly bills that we get from Empire. These are the next 8 groupings. Those are the total expenditures that you see in your budget, and you'll look at those total expenditures, and it'll lay out those 8 basic groups. So general government is up about $7.4 million from the previous year. Education is up a little over $2 million. Public safety is up about $3.3 million. Health is up $1.8 million. Transportation down $58,000. Economic assistance and opportunity is actually down by $3 million. And that's a low number for the last probably 8 to 10 years. Next slide. Culture and recreation is a rather small number, but it's up $141,000. Home and community services is down about $165,000. Employee benefits are down, as you see, the $700,000, but it's because other costs went up besides your retirement and health insurance. Transfers at year end are up slightly. Overall, when you look at these expenditures, what you spent versus what you took in gave you a $5 million start at the end of the year, of which you brought $3 million to your surplus, which we call undesignated fund balance. So those dollars are needed. If you think about it, your weekly shares for Medicaid, a little over $1.6 million. Your weekly payroll is now approaching $2.5 million a week. So you can see, without any debt service or anything else, there's a tremendous amount of cash obligations that you have, and the needs for serious reserves are there. And I would encourage you to continue, just as you have, to prudently budget, to try and be as conservative on revenue as you can, and be aggressive to be sure that you declare every expenditure that you're going to have. The thank you part of this is I don't have any trouble talking. I don't have any trouble writing, but it's very hard to put it into words, to tell you what it means to work with you. And I've been inspired by you and by all the things that you've done and the sacrifices that you make with your family and your life to do what you do. And it's harder than ever to be an elected official today. And I have great admiration for what you've all done. So, I do thank all of you. It's been an honor and a privilege. I can't tell you how great it's been. It's been phenomenal. I really have enjoyed every minute of it. I do thank you, and I do urge you to continue the good things that you do. And I would ask you to look at some of the things that we've been unsuccessful in selling you. We need to do something significantly different to help poor people get work and get to be part of the economy. We've talked about this for years in the state of the fisc, and it just doesn't seem to rise to the level where we should. And if you think about the amount of shortfall of personnel that we have in businesses today, for us not to do more to get people who are below the economic belt into the economy, it's just incredibly important. You're looking probably at this budget of $700 million. You're looking at more than half of that is directly related to the costs of poverty. So when people say, oh, who cares about the poor? Don't worry about it. You have the poor with you always. Even Christ said that 2,000 years ago. The reality is, if we don't do something about it, shame on us, because it's tremendous waste. The human capacity and powers that's there, we should do more about that, and I hope that that is something that you all do with the challenge. Mr. Chairman, staff, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Nicole, thank you.